JoyNews' latest Hotline documentary, Serving the Witches, has revealed the story of children condemned to a life of servitude and bondage in Ghana's witches' camps. The full version of the documentary airs tonight on JoyNews on TV and online at myjoyonline.com. Here is a teaser to that documentary ahead of its premiering.
High levels of poverty and underdevelopment in this region means children are usually the ones bearing the brunt. Nabuli has a chronic water shortage problem. This is the story of many of the communities in this area. So children like Sewa and her friends from the camp walk for close to 2 hours to fetch water.
We get problem from the water. The water is no good. When we fetch, the water is dirty. But we don't know what we will do. Just the only water is our water. If you no drink, where can we get water to drink? So we use that one for cooking to be drinking.
Some of them, because of the water, they don't go to school. But if they don't bath and go to school, the teacher will get them away to go home and bath. And you go house, you not get water to bath, you'll stay in the room, you won't get out again. Most of them reach about 2 weeks. They don't know, they don't go to class and learn 1 or E because of the water matter.
Back in Accra, I meet Joseph Whittal, who heads the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ. He knows this subject too well. Many years ago, Whittal worked for the SHRAJ in the Upper East region as a young officer. He spent some months to study the lives of women in the Gambaga witches camp, also one of the country's largest. His report then formed the basis of many of the government-led interventions into assisting women in witches camps in Ghana.
There was no camp, there was no encampment like walls and all that. And so we gave our recommendations that no, there were issues with regard to the terminology that was being employed, that when you talk about a camp, then you assume that there is some restriction of movement, that the women can come and go at their will. The only thing is that they themselves don't want to go based on our findings because of what could happen to them back in the communities. So, the long and short of it is, we recommended that it is the responsibility of the state, first and foremost, to come to the rescue of such women. If it was a simple case, you would not sit here to interview me. It will take a bit of time. When cases are reported of either beatings or violations against women and driving them out, and we go to investigate. Naturally, this border on crime, right? But because we are the ones who have to look at the human rights angle, we invite the people. They come. First thing they say is, no, we are not the people. It's the woman and her own family who drove her out. In the meantime, the women need some succor. If they can't go back to their communities for now, can we ensure that they are enrolled on LEAP? Can we ensure that they are given some microfinance so that they can operate from another place and their children can join them there where they will not be known?
So that's a teaser to Serving the Witches, which is airing tonight here on JoyNews. Producer of that documentary, Justice Bedu, joins me in the studio to tell you what to expect tonight if you do join us. Justice, it's good to have you. It's been a while since you were here on the show.
It's been a while, Gifty, yes.
Do tell us. This is a very touching story from all angles. Talk about the women, the so-called witches. Talk about the children who have to put their lives on hold, so to speak, to serve them. What should we expect in the full documentary?
So what should we expect? This is more of going deeper beyond our coverage of the situation of witches camps in northern Ghana. Because if you remember, Gifty, and a lot of our audience would remember, in 2018, we told the story of camps of bondage, which basically looked at the general situation of witches camps, the situation in which the women were living, and then why the camp still existed after decades of still talking about them. So what we found out doing that work was also the untold story of children who were brought to live with some of these very, very old, frail women who couldn't do anything for themselves and had to be cared for. And so this documentary really highlights their life and the world in which they live. Many of them out of school live in deprivation in communities where there's no access to water. And on top of everything else, they have the very biggest hurdle to scale over, which is stigma, because they have to live with the consequences of being the children of people who have been accused of witchcraft in an area where the belief in witchcraft itself is very much deep-seated, and people even believe that it could be hereditary. And so once your mother is under such an accusation, it's very much likely that you too would be a witch.
You're believed to have inherited it from them as well. Well, Justice, before I let you go, it must have taken, something must have triggered your attention to the existence of these children, because the story about witches or so-called witches in these camps has been told over and over again. But I think for me, this is the first time I'm hearing the angle of the children who serve them, most of them girls. What did it take to trigger this angling of the story?
So following camps of bondage in 2018, there's been a lot of work, mainly CSO-led, which led to the closure of one more camp after the very first one that was closed in 2015 in Naboli in December. And so we were there to cover that for JoyNews. And whilst covering that, I got to know about the story of some of the women who actually said they weren't going to go from the community, even though the camp had been closed. And we went on to ask why and how they were going to do that, and it was because they said that we had these children that we didn't know where to take them from here. And so all of that triggered the questions, and we went on from there, did interviews, had to go back, travel around, interview some more people, and this is what we've come up with. And so this is going to be a really huge documentary, and as you say, there's a lot of interest, and we are looking up to it at 8:30 today on Prime.
Thank you, Justice. 8:30 tonight on Joy Prime. We'll bring you that documentary. Really, you should make time. Take a look at the life of these children. Justice, thank you. Great insights there for that story.